Yep.
Okay, so we're continuing on with our new series on Pirkei Avot. We're holding in Perek Aleph, Mishnah Bet. What's interesting about this Masechet Avot is it is written so many years ago, about 1800 years ago or so. And it's so true till this very day. Nothing has changed. Judaism is eternal. The Jewish people are eternal. Our Torah is going to be around forever. It's never going to be changed because the truth cannot be changed. The truth is the truth. Whereas many countries have changed their laws, have made amendments to their constitution, changes are necessary from time to time because people change. Civilization has changed, humanity has changed, technology has changed, things change. Nonetheless, some basics never change. We're talking here about values, we're talking about advice on how to lead our lives, in how to conduct ourselves, how to observe the mitzvot. These words of the Chachamim are not only true, they also contain within them tremendous amount of motivation and encouragement as to why we need to do certain things, what the benefits are, what will we derive from following these words. It's obviously also important that we learn these words because this is part of our tradition. As we mentioned in the very beginning, the introduction, that there's a great deal of emphasis on the Masoret being handed down, the tradition being handed down in a continuous way from generation to generation, unbroken. So these are the words that we want to teach to our kids. But in order to be effective, to be an effective teacher, you have to believe in what you're teaching. One has to be a good example, otherwise the words are not strong. Even when we are effective, even when we are strong and we're excited about what we say and what we do, we still have to pray. We have to pray that the children, that the next generation should be just as excited and as interested. Because as much as we do for them, as strong as we may be, there is always the exposure to the outside environment, many competing forces out there trying to educate them as well with things that of course are contrary to what we believe in. So these words of the Chachamim, we take them very seriously. We don't doubt their veracity. In other words, they're true. This is real. It was real back then, it is real today as much as it was then too. In the same way, when we learned Mishlei and Kohelet, the words of Solomon, the tremendous amount of wisdom that he shares with us, obviously he intended this to be forever, for all generations, because this is the truth. The Emet is always going to be relevant. So, in starting Pirkei Avot, we are told that the rabbis, the Anshe Knesset Agdolah, were the last group of rabbis of Chachamim that received this Masoret from the Nevi'im, from the previous generation. It was handed down to them. Even though the Masoret is being handed down to them, obviously there are things that they're picking up, they are observing. Times, of course, are different at the time of the Bet HaMikdash than they were during the time that the Jewish people were in the desert. Things are different today too. There are other kinds of temptations, there are other dangers. Nevertheless, these are the same Chachamim who received the Masoret and who had the ability to communicate to us based on not only on their observation, based on their chokhmah, based on their da'at Torah, the proper hashkafa, the proper way that they saw the world, certain principles that are very important. In other words, they are entrusted with giving over the Masoret, with teaching Judaism, with teaching halakha. And here they're not necessarily teaching a halakha per se, but it is just as important as any other halakha. These are principles that are very valuable, that can make a difference in our life. If a person follows it, if a person really adapts it, it can make a tremendous difference if he truly believes in it. So each Mishnah, we're going to go through every Mishnah, Be'ezrat Hashem, gives us incredible insight into human nature, into what potential problems exist out there and how to deal with them. and how, of course, we need to be proud of who we are, proud of our Chachamim, be respectful of what they say, in order that we, of course, carry out their message for ourselves and for our children, for future generations. Shimon HaTzadik haya misheyarei Knesset HaGdolah. So Shimon HaTzadik was the youngest member of the Anshe Knesset HaGdolah, of this group of 120 members. We're talking about the Second Temple era right now. He was a great man. And he, together, of course, with others in his generation, taught Torah. They were not just members of the Sanhedrin, where they needed to rule over certain questions that came up. They were not only, some of them, Kohanim Gedolim, who had other responsibilities in the Bet HaMikdash, they were also teachers of Torah. And Shimon HaTzadik, who's the last member, nevertheless, he's still a member of the Anshe Knesset HaGdolah, and he's actually the first Tana. He's considered one of the first Tanaim of the period called Tanaim, who basically tells us, if we can summarize, or if I can summarize in a few words my message to you from everything that I have taught you, and he has taught us a lot of things, is that I don't want you to forget that that the world stands on three things. Three things. What is three things? Three things means three important principles, three important ideas, and he calls them amudim, they're pillars. Pillars means that the world stands on them. If one of them is missing, the world can fall apart. What are the three pillars? Ala Torah, v'la avodah, v'gemilut chasadim. Torah, the world stands on Torah. The world stands on the learning of the Torah, the observance of the Torah. Avodah is the service of Hashem. During the time of the temple, the service involved the temple service, the korbanot, the sacrifices, and today it involves prayer. What it really means is the connection or the relationship between us and the Almighty in a practical way, in doing certain things. And the third one is al-gmilut chasadim, acts of kindness. So what you have over here are three very important areas in life. The area of Torah involves ourselves, because through the Torah, learning of Torah, fulfillment of the mitzvot, we refine ourselves. We hopefully are able to better discipline ourselves and control ourselves and focus properly. We need the Torah. It's a guide. Avodah is our relationship with Hashem. That's another area of life, an important area of life that we're not just here for ourselves, we're not just here to enjoy ourselves. Part of life involves maintaining a good kesher, good contact with the Almighty. And number three is gemilut chasadim, and that's ben adam lechavero. Those are the mitzvot, the practices that we have that relate between man and man. Right? These are very important too. Gemilut chasadim is not tzedakah. It says gemilut chasadim, and it says it in the plural, because there are various kinds of acts of kindness. Gemilut chasadim involves, for example, helping somebody get married, whether it's finding them their match, whether it's helping them with financial resources. Many people cannot afford it. That's a form of chesed. Helping to bury the dead, that's a tremendous act of chesed, chesed shel emet. Visiting or comforting those who are in mourning. You ask yourself, well, where is this mitzvah in the Torah? It's all included in Gemilut Chasadim. These are all examples of Gemilut Chasadim, to be kind, to be considerate and sensitive to others. There are various ways to show it. There are therefore various mitzvot, ma'asim tovim, that are under the category of Gemilut Chasadim. And this one is more important than tzedakah. Why? Because the rabbis tell us tzedakah, charity, is only done with the poor. Chesed can be done with the rich as well. Sometimes a wealthy man needs a loan. He doesn't want tzedakah. He needs a loan. So chesed you can do with a rich man too. Chesed you can do with those who are dead. Chesed you do with your body. Tzedakah you only do with your money. It is therefore much more difficult. It's a greater challenge. Therefore, a very, very big mitzvah, the Rabbi tells us. It is much greater because it involves so much more than just plain tzedakah. So anyway, Judaism is based on these three pillars. These three pillars, and that is why we find, it's not a coincidence, that our forefathers, each one symbolized one of the three pillars. Symbolized means he lived his life and he put tremendous emphasis in this one area. Avraham Avinu, Amud HaChesed, the pillar of kindness. Read his stories. Read the many examples. I mean, he did all the mitzvot. He did many things. But what stands out about this man, about his personality, about what he's trying to achieve in the world, his mission, is Chesed, kindness. He excels in that area. All our forefathers did, but he emphasized it. And the emphasis is there for future generations to learn from. It's not just his life story, it's for us to learn from. This is what our Torah, our way of life should be based on. Yitzchak represents or symbolizes Amud HaAvodah, HaYir'ah. The fear, the awe, the reverence for God, for the Almighty in the Avodat Hashem, which involves prayer, self-sacrifice. He was the one that went to the Akedah. His story, his life story, involves him devoting himself completely to God. The act of being willing to go to the Akedah as a sacrifice is to remind us of what may be required occasionally for a Jew to show self-sacrifice, to show complete devotion to God. And that is seen in Yitzchak. En Yaakov, Amud HaEmet, Amud HaTorah. He represents the Yoshev Ohalim, living or sitting in tents, learning Torah. A man who was immersed in learning. And obviously all of them learned, but this was something symbolized or very much emphasized by him. How he cared about this, how it mattered so much to him, how he went out of his way and spent years in the yeshiva to learn as much as possible. Why are these three pillars being mentioned over here by Shimon HaTzadik? He's not only telling us about their importance, he's not only telling us how they are important pillars, but really by summarizing perhaps what the Torah is all about, or what the way of life for a Jew is all about. He's telling us, you want to be able to perform throughout your life according to the Torah, you want to be able to observe all the mitzvot, you want to succeed. These are the three pillars that you have to hold on to. If you hold on to these pillars and you remember about them, they have within them the ability to lead you to greater performance, to achievement, to success. These three, hold on to these three. They are, of course, important for another reason. Imagine somebody saying, well, Rabbi, I've heard this. I'm very charitable. I give a lot of tzedakah. So, that's enough. No, it's not enough. That's chesed. We have two more pillars. Torah and Avodah. You can't just get away with one. You have to have all three. So another idea here that's being expressed is that Judaism says we need to have all three. You can't just have one. Who has one and not the other? Look at other religions. Look at Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism. You will see Christianity somehow attempts to, at least they preach about it, to be kind and good and turn the other cheek. Everything revolves around chesed. Even though they're a bunch of fakers, even though they failed miserably, even though they did not practice what they preach, and they were very cruel and butchered people in the name of religion. Nonetheless, in their Torah, lehavdil, it's not, they don't have really Torah, in their Bible, in their philosophy, it's about being nice. All right. What about kiyuma mitzvot, observance of all other mitzvot? if you committed many, many sins, even adulterous sins, just go to the priest and confess. That's it. Right? So you see what their emphasis is. There's not so much avodah. You know, everybody know here what Mardi Gras is?
Yeah.
You may know better than me, but I think I know what it is. Is that the Tuesday before Lent, or a day before Lent, or a week before Lent? You know what Lent is. Right?
It goes on for several weeks, actually.
Yeah. Anyway, it's holelut vehefkerut, we would say in Hebrew. It's having a very uncontrolled, happy time by doing things that are forbidden, many things, and allowing yourself to indulge in all kinds of things that are not right, because soon it's going to be Lent, where they basically
For 30 days.
withhold themselves from all kinds of things like that.
One thing.
Just one day?
One thing.
Oh,
One
yeah.
thing. They give up one thing.
Oh, they just give up one
One
thing? Yeah, all right. Anyway, I don't want to get into that because we're not learning here about Christianity. But there's no avodah. There's no real avodah. There's definitely no Torah. I mean, they read. It's very, very superficial, and it's very, very directed towards more towards chesed, if anything. What about Islam? Even though Islam believes in 6 things, which I'm not going to get into right now, they seem to be putting more emphasis on the prayer. They pray 5 times a day. You go to Marseille, France, and you'll see them in the middle of the street, bowing down, stopping all traffic if necessary. Tremendous emphasis on the prayer. They may do other things too. Some of them, of course, do more. But more of an emphasis on avodah. What kind of avodah? The prayer kind of avodah, that is. Torah, of course, now. Gemilut Chasadim, maybe a little bit, but not. This is what stands out more by them. And in Buddhism, you have much more of an emphasis on trying to connect with this supreme being, this one creator, or whatever he is, or whatever they call. Not so much avodah, not so much gemilut chasadim. You basically, in Buddha, you lose your personality. It's nothing about you. It's about how you connect in a spiritual way with the one power that exists in the universe. It was connecting with that one power. All right, no chashuvah. Better not to get into too many details. The point is that there is no balance in those religions between Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim. It's only like one area that is more emphasized than the rest. Judaism stresses that we have to have a balance in all 3. It's the connection with Hashem, the learning of the Torah, the Avodah, the Gemilut Chasadim. Look how society in our personal lives and everything is governed by all of these rules, by these 3 pillars. And there has to be a healthy balance. A Jew can therefore not exempt himself from his other commitments and responsibilities by saying, oh, I give a lot of tzedakah, that's good enough for me. No, it's not good enough. That's not enough. Why are they mentioned in this area, in this particular order? Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim. Torah is mentioned first because obviously, in order to be able to properly do Chesed and Avodah, we have to know how to do it. So Torah is number 1 because the Torah will guide us and will help us, will teach us how to perform in Avodah and Gemilut Chasadim. Gemilut Chasadim means to be kind. Well, are you always supposed to be kind? How are you going to be kind? Shaul HaMelech made a mistake. He did not realize what the point was in the mitzvah of the Torah, to not have pity or compassion on Amalek, and he did have pity. He wanted to spare the man's life, Agag. And it was a terrible mistake, a very bad mistake. Don't go against the Torah. Don't try to be nicer and kinder than the Torah. The Torah says, Timchet zecher Amalek mitachat hashamayim. Don't be compassionate over there. They're your enemy, your worst enemy. Right? Ordinarily, yes, we are compassionate. We're compassionate people. ordinarily. But we have to follow the Torah. And if the Torah says in this particular instance, don't be, then you can't be. But if you try to be smarter than the Torah, you're going to make a mistake. That's the example with Agag. Shlomo Melech teaches us, don't overspoil your child. Don't pamper him. If you hold back the whip, if you hold back the rebuke, you do not reprimand him when necessary, you're going to eventually, Chas v'Shem, you're going to end up hating him. Because he's going to go, when he grows up, he's going to go off the derech, he's going to go off the path, and you're going to have a hard time saying anything about it then. So do something as much as you can while he's young, while he's under your control and your influence. But if you overlove him and you're too kind to him and you give him what he wants and you buy him what he wants and this and this and this, what do you expect? So therefore, Shlomo Melech is warning us, be careful in this particular area. And what are their experts saying today? I just saw something on the internet. Why spanking never works. You know, they want to show a study, something like that, why it never worked. Never. It's completely wrong. You know, spanking, obviously you don't want to abuse. You don't want to do it too hard. Obviously, most parents who are normal are never going to do it too hard because they love their kids. And usually it's intended because they want to straighten out the child. So here comes the non-Jewish head and says, why it doesn't work. Well, they're completely wrong. They've never fully investigated. They have not looked at life. They have not looked at generations upon generations to see the results of those who did and those who didn't. They're going based on their own brief and very narrow experience, and many times it's totally not based on reality. Yes?
What was David HaMelech's mistake with Avshalom? Was he too...
Same thing. That's a good point. David HaMelech with two of his children, Avshalom and Adoniyahu, he did not rebuke them enough. He did not tell them off. He did not correct them enough. Not that he didn't do anything. I'm sure he said something. Not enough.
But he did with Shlomo?
Much more, sure.
But why was that the case?
Well, first of all, remember, it's a good question. What would be the answer to that? There are possibly several answers of why David did not rebuke those children as much as he did Shlomo Melech. First of all, Shlomo Melech didn't need as much rebuking. They needed much more. Okay? Adoniyahu and Avshalom needed much more. Why did they need much more? They were rebellious kids. Why were they rebellious kids? Because they were children of Yefat Toar, of a woman who was taken prisoner at war, converted. In other words, so the genes here are not 100% pure. So the neshama being born into these children is not 100% the righteous child of David HaMelech. Okay?
But to the degree that they would...
One second. Shlomo HaMelech is the child of who? Who's his mother?
Bathsheba.
You know who Bathsheba was? A righteous woman. And David. So you have a combination of David and Bathsheba. So Shlomo HaMelech is a good boy. He's Yeled Tov Yerushalayim, as we would call him in Israel. He may have done certain things wrong too. Remember, he becomes king at the age of 13. David HaMelech is older when he's born. And he's older and he's not fighting as many battles. He's not as busy as he was when he was younger. When he was younger, when Adoniyahu and Avshalom were being raised, he may not have had all the time. As a king, he was very, very busy. He taught Torah. He sat in the Bet Din. Right? He was involved in a tremendous amount of things. He barely slept, the rabbis tell us. He had many wives. He had other kids, right? So obviously he should have taken more time for that, and he didn't.
But it resulted in them trying to kill him. And,
Right, exactly.
But how could it have gone so bad? How could it have been that...
How could it have been what?
To the nature, to the degree that they would have turned on it. Could any rebuke have prevented that?
Rabbis tell us a parent's love for a child is greater than a child's love for his own parent, unfortunately. No one will ever love someone else as much as a parent loves their child. The love a parent has for a child is so natural. It's part of you. a child doesn't see it the same way. The child's love for his father or mother is not the same. He may feel close somewhat, but not the same. So the rabbis tell us in the Gemara, unfortunately, a child can kill his father. A father would usually not do it to his child, except for the crazy women who throw their babies in the trash cans here. Those that occurs in America. Especially in America, they're crazy. The crazy people. Other than that, usually men and women would not hurt their kids in such a way unless they're crazy. They're on drugs. They're desperate. They're sick. Father to a son, he loved his son.
But do you believe
when his own rebellious child that almost killed him, running after him, was killed and died, was dead, you know how he cried for him? You know how David HaMelech cried for Avshalom? Incredible. And you can think, wow, he still has pity for him, that terrible child. Obviously, Adoniyahu, first of all, I'm sure had certain good qualities too. Came from David HaMelech. Nonetheless, this child was a very, very, very rebellious child. He had issues. And because of those issues, he was capable of doing what he did. And to make things worse, he had people who sided with him, who wanted to be his friend and be with him, for political reasons especially. If he becomes king, second in command. So, yeah.
He wanted to kill Shlomo?
Also, sure.
Would any amount of rebuke have stopped them from going on?
We don't know. One does not know. Possibly, yes. That's what you have to try. You don't know. It could be that all the rebuke would still not have helped. And the child would have been a ben sorer more, as the Torah says, a very rebellious child that there's no cure for him. You take him to the death penalty, to Bet Din, for doing what he did. But you have to try. And David HaMelech, for whatever reason, there could have been other reasons, didn't apply enough musar as he should have. So that's another example of where one has to be very careful not to think that, that I'm going to be compassionate and I'm going to be nice to him. Don't go against the Torah. So therefore, Torah is the number one pillar, because the Torah guides us on how to do chesed, on how to do avodah, when to do these things, and how much to do them. These three areas, of course, will also correspond to machshava, dibur, and maaseh. A mitzvah, any mitzvah, in order for it to be complete, has to be properly done in our thought, in its speech, and in our ma'asim, in our deeds. In other words, all around, through all our faculties, we have the mitzvot, we have the Torah, avodah and gemilut chasadim, in the various ways that they are performed. So, for example, Torah is more machshava, is more thought. Avodah is more dibur. We speak, we pray, we use our mouth, we use our speech for that. And gemilut chasadim is maaseh. For the most part, gemilut chasadim is done with a maaseh. It's a deed. It's an act. So we use all our faculties to perform these areas, these important areas. So Torah is number one, in first place, in first position, because the Torah is the one that guides us. But the Torah is also number one because the Torah is more responsible than any of the other pillars for the survival of the Jewish people as a nation, for the survival of Torah, of the Torah itself. In other words, the learning of Torah. If you remember the story, the incident with Yaakov and Saro shel Esav, the minister of Esav, Yaakov one night is by himself, and the minister, the angel of Esav, has a little battle with him. Yaakov wins, he limps. That is the time he receives a new name, an additional name, that is Israel, because he fought with the minister. Very, very strange incident. Had it been someone else, not an angel, I would have understood. He was there by himself. The guy was fighting him for his money. He held him up. All right. This is a spiritual war. This is a battle between Esav and Yaakov on a higher level, because Yaakov took the blessings. So there was something that Esav had against him, something. Nonetheless, on a higher level, what this battle represents is the battle against Torah, the battle against this pillar which Yaakov represents. This minister did not fight Abraham, did not fight Yitzchak. No minister, actually, no angel went against Abraham and Yitzchak. Why not?
Torah.
Because the ministers upstairs, the ones who are, of course, against the Torah, they don't care about charity. Let the Jews do as much charity as they can. Charity by itself will not contribute for the Jewish survival. So, he didn't fight Avraham Avinu. Avodah, let the Jews pray a whole day. Let them be in shul. That will not do it either. You can have thousands of shuls all over the world. That will not guarantee Jewish survival. You know what guarantees Jewish survival? Torah. You have schools that teach Torah, not public schools, Jewish schools that teach Torah, that hand over the tradition, where there is chachamim, who are basically responsible to give over the Masorah to those children. That is the pillar on which, if those kids hold on to and take it with them, that will guarantee their survival. That will guarantee that the next generation hopefully will follow the mitzvot. This is what Esav is against. This is what he doesn't want. That's why he fights against it. That's where we have the greatest trouble, the greatest Yetzirah with Torah. Learning Torah, coming to a shiur is the hardest Yetzirah. Yeah. It's cold outside. It's late. We're tired from work. We may be even hungry. We have other things to do. The Yetzirah will find all kinds of excuses to dissuade you from going to a shiur, from listening to Torah, from learning it. Because this is the most powerful ammunition against him. See, pray a whole day. He doesn't mind. He won't mind as much. Do chesed and charity? Okay. He won't mind as much. But Torah, Chas v'Shalom, he won't let you. He'll try very, very hard. That is why the Russians were much more against Jews learning Torah than they were than having a temple. The temple could stay. Big deal. That didn't bother them as much. What bothered them was that if a Jew was caught learning Torah, this was already tantamount to treason. Because obviously they realized, deep down, that if a Jew learns Torah, he won't be a communist. He won't believe in atheism. He won't be a real Russian. He will always be against them. He'll be a rebel. Who knows what they thought. This presented the greatest threat to their regime, to their way of life. Right? And that is, of course, what always stood out between us and the non-Jewish world, is our way of life. They didn't like it. Now, had we followed the Torah mitzvot, it wouldn't have mattered. They would have ignored us at some point. But you can't have the cake and eat it too. To be Jewish and not to observe, they're going to come against you. Why don't you assimilate all the way? So their threatening, the Goyim's threatening the Jews or going up against us and oppressing us, was always a reminder, either you're going to be Jewish or you're not. You can't have it both ways. So obviously there's something wrong. Otherwise it would not have come against us. It's all min hashamayim. It's always a sign min hashamayim that we better examine ourselves. But Amalek, more than anybody else, of course, has a problem with Torah. Because the Torah is a contradiction to what he represents. And that is why these two forces are always at each other's throats. In other words, they're completely opposite each other, completely against each other. And that's why we have to eliminate them in any way we can. This Torah spreads light and Amalek spreads darkness. The two cannot coexist. So the Torah is always going to be number one. One has to be very careful if he's about to give up a shiur of Torah. What is he giving it up for? I tell you, my favorite line, with a husband who has a difficult dilemma. He has a shiur at 8:30, but his wife told him, "Listen, honey, tonight my mother is coming from out of town, and guess who's picking her up from the airport?"
You are.
When is the flight coming in? At 8:30, 9 o'clock, whatever. But that's the time of the shiur. And she, of course, she may not have that much of an interest or respect for the Torah. And she says, well, she only comes here every couple years. It's not like she comes here every month or two. You can let go of that class once a week, once in a while. She's wrong. She's completely wrong. And of course, some people may be surprised. Well, Rabbi, Shalom Bayit. Shalom Bayit, of course. Send a limousine with flowers to pick up your mother-in-law. That's Shalom Bayit. You went out of your way to pay for somebody else to pick her up. And she's going to see you anyway in a few minutes. It's not like you're not going to, just because you have to be there to pick up and to put the suitcase in the car. Think about it. What are you losing? What are you going to miss out? But that's the Yetzer Hara, working through the wife or working through some other way. You have to be very careful. Don't give up on Torah so easily. People don't realize what they're losing. This gives them the strength, this gives them the drive, the encouragement, the happiness, the focus, the clarity. Torah gives so much that how could you give it up? A half an hour of Torah a day is more than all the vitamins combined together. What they do for the neshama, not only for the body. That is why it's so important to be kovei team. Kovei team means to set aside some time to learn Torah, even 15 minutes a day. A few minutes even. Kviuti team. And when a person heads upstairs, that's one of the first questions they will ask him is, Kavata itim la Torah. 15 minutes. What are you going to say? You didn't have 15 minutes. Then how come you spent a half an hour every day reading the sports section of the LA Times? Not even the news. The sports section. The sports was so much more important to you. You know, at least you spent a half an hour there, spend a half an hour doing this, then they won't complain. This guy was interested in politics. This guy was interested in sport. All right, but at least he learned the same amount of time, if not more, in Torah. But if you gave this much more time and respect, how are you going to justify yourself that there was no time left for Torah? Not even 15 minutes? Obviously, you didn't value it enough. Well, since you didn't value it enough, let's show you a video of your life, and let's see what would have happened had you learned Torah. You see this couple of frames over here at the age of 25 and 30? Whatever. Had you been learning Torah, you wouldn't have been so upset. You wouldn't have gotten mad at your neighbor. He wouldn't have taken you to court as a result. You wouldn't have lost so much money in attorney fees, all because you were not learning Torah. You got upset at stupidities, at trivialities. You were silly. You lost your mind. That's just one example. What about if he lost his wife as a result of this? Not his neighbor, right? So many things could have happened differently had you had a few minutes set aside for learning Torah. You would have seen things differently. You would have been calmer. You wouldn't have taken life so seriously, all the trivialities and vanities in life. You would have focused more on family time, perhaps. All kinds of things that would have been different in your life had you set aside a few minutes for Torah. That frame that you've just seen would have been so different. So that is why Torah in a Jew's life is more than just a pillar. It's a lifesaver. All right, that's this Mishnah Bet. Let's go on to Mishnah Gimel. Antigonos ish socho kibel mishimon HaTzadik. He's the next generation. הוא היה אומר, אל תהיו כעבדים המשמשים את הרב על מנת לקבל פרס. This Mishnah is somewhat of a continuation of the last Mishnah. Last Mishnah we spoke about Avodah, the service of Hashem. So he's going to elaborate a little bit more on the service of Hashem. How do you perform the service? There's various ways to do it. So Antigonos tells us to be careful that our approach should not be that we're serving the Almighty, the Master, al menat lekabel pras, with the anticipation of being rewarded. So al tiyu, don't be like servants hameshamshim et harav al menat lekabel pras, who serve their master in anticipation of some compensation or reward. No, that's not so good. אלא הבו כעבדים המשמשים את הרב שלא על מנת לקבל פרס. Do the work not in anticipation of receiving any reward. How should I do it? Do it as though, imagine you get a call, the king wants to come over your home. You say, gladly, I'll take care of him, I'll have him in my home, I'll host him. Do it because the king wants to be with you, because the king instructed you, because he told this to you directly. Forget about it. Of course there's reward in Olam Haba, in the world to come. Of course one will be rewarded for everything he did. But that's not what should motivate you to do the mitzvah, because it's a lesser quality. It's cheaper. When you do something because Hashem asked me to, it is a lot, not only better, it's in a much higher level of a mitzvah. And there are many, many benefits to doing something because Hashem said so, as opposed to doing it because I'm going to be rewarded. If somebody does it because he's going to be rewarded, at some point he might say, you know what, I have enough. I'm going to retire now. I don't have to do it anymore. I put on tefillin for 50 years. Do I have to do it more? That's it. If a person doesn't do it l'shem shamayim, for the sake of God, for the sake of heaven, he doesn't have the kabel pras, he may be weakened in his resolve. He may not be as excited to do it anymore. He may stop doing it. A person who does it because Hashem said so, he does not do it for a reward, he may still continue to do it. A person who does it only because Hashem told him so, and that's all he thinks about, he will have the strength to give up his life if called, if it's necessary. People who do not do things l'shem shamayim, people who are looking forward to receiving a reward, they may not be as devoted. And when the time comes and they are challenged to either convert to another faith or or commit a transgression, they may commit chas v'shalom the transgression. What's holding them back? So not doing it for a reward is not only on a higher level, it's unlimited. It gives you a tremendous amount of koach to be able to continue to do it because Hashem said so. This is for Hashem. Antigonos, by having said those words, however, was misunderstood by two students, Tzadok and Baitos. Tzadok and Baitos were students of Antigonos. They misunderstood what he said. They didn't ask. They should have asked for clarification. But because they left the class apparently early, they said, okay, we were just told in black and white terms that there is no sachar va'onish. There's no reward and punishment in Olam Haba. He just told us, don't look forward to any reward. But that's not true. That's not the way he said it. They misunderstood him. He just said, don't do it for that reason. Of course there is reward. That's one of the most important principles in Judaism, one of the 13 Ikarei HaEmunah, that there is sachar va'onish. There is reward and punishment for one's deeds. One is accountable. It's not in this world necessarily. Most of the mitzvot and the averot that we're going to see, the consequences of them, the reward or the punishment, is in Olam Haba. Not in this world. There are certain things that occur in this world too. There are certain things that Hashem manages his business down here too. But for the most part, schar mitzvah b'haya al maleka, the rabbis tell us, there is no really reward for mitzvah in this world. There has to be paid in the world to come. And because of that, the last words of the Mishnah are very important. Because the mitzvah is not repaid here, he tells us, V'hi morah shamayim alechem. That is why you have to be sure, you have to be always certain that you're being motivated because of the morah shamayim on you. Morah shamayim is a very important driving force that should motivate us to do or not to do certain things that are prohibited to do. Because if there's no direct consequence for what we do here, if we don't see it, then what's going to motivate us? What's going to drive us? So he says, what should drive you, what you should always pay attention to, or what you should always be strong in, is morah shamayim. Morah shamayim means that we always have to have the fear of heaven upon us, and that's something that we have to focus on, because otherwise, without that, people are capable of doing the worst, committing the worst crimes, even if they're religious. They call themselves religious. Somebody once asked me, Rabbi, how could it be that guy, he's religious and he steals from people? I said, if he steals, he's not religious. No, but he keeps Shabbat. No, maybe he keeps Shabbat, but he's not religious. Religious means that he keeps all the Torah, all the mitzvot. If he steals, he's not religious. People don't understand that. They think because he keeps Shabbat, he wears a kippah, he has long peot and a beard, and he dresses black, white. Oh, he must be a tzaddik. No. Tzaddik also has a yetzer hara. People don't realize that a righteous man sometimes has a bigger yetzer hara than one who's not so righteous. He has greater challenges and temptations sometimes. And it's very possible that he can fall. He can be tempted and succumb to the Yetzer Hara, to the evil inclination, unless he has Morah Shamayim. So V'hi Morah Shamayim Alechem is so important that it be upon us. Upon us meaning, make sure that you're connected with that, because otherwise, what's going to motivate you, or what's going to hold you back if we're dealing with an Avirah, a negative commandment? If it's not the fear of heaven, it may be much more difficult to do things because he said so, but I don't see him. So one has to develop the Morah Shamayim. Morah Shamayim is not something so easy. It's so easily acquired. It takes time to develop. Obviously, we learn respect in our homes. We learn of Hashem's managing the world and involvement in the world from our home, from our rabbis and teachers. But Morah Shamayim is something that one has to himself mature in. And one way that this happens to us,
What is Morah Shamayim?
the fear of heaven. Morah
is fear.
Morah is like Yir'ah, the fear of heaven. The one way that it matures or it develops in us is through the blessings we make before we eat and after we eat. Baruch Hashem, He gives me, He provides for me. We go out of the restroom, Baruch Hashem, I don't need dialysis. The kidneys are functioning. Baruch Hashem, if you understand the words you're saying, that is, right? Baruch Hashem, He gives parnasah and so forth. So these are blessings. Number two, the kippah that we wear. What's the kippah? The kippah is to remind us that He's above us, that He watches over us, that He's aware of everything we do and everything we think and say. Awareness, divine providence, involvement. I can pray to Him, He listens to me. The kippah reminds me that on top of this head, there's somebody above it. God that not only created the world, the God that is involved in our life, B'ashgacha Pratit especially, divine providence, directly involved. He's completely aware of every little detail of my life. And by covering this head, I show that I respect and I recognize that. So if I take it off, it's an act of disrespect. People don't realize the kippah, even though in the olden days there was no kippah, there was still a head covering. So you wore your turban, you wore your cloth or something, depending what kind of clothing you wore. The head was always covered. It was the Romans, the Greeks, there were certain nations who went with an uncovered head. Even many of the Middle Eastern nations had their head covered. Go to Afghanistan today, look at the burqa, right? The women. That may be too much of a covering. But still, it's not just modesty. There's a certain degree of kavod. And guess what? The Pope decided to wear one too. Right? So he wears a red one. Anyway, that shows respect. That shows morah for Shamayim. The kippah. Another way of looking at Morah Shamayim is that through the love of Hashem, one will not necessarily be able to succeed with the Yetzer Hara. Love for Hashem, the love for Hashem is not strong enough to hold one back from committing an Avirah. You need Yir'ah, you need Morah to hold you back. I told you once there's a big argument amongst the psychologists if a husband can cheat on his wife and still love her. What do you say?
No way.
And the women say no way. Right? Can a husband still say I love you? He loves her, even though he cheats on her. So some psychologists say yes, of course he can, and some say no, it's not possible. What does Judaism have to say? Judaism says it's not possible. Why? Maybe he loves her, but not 100%. Because true love on our part is you love somebody so much, you're not prepared to do something that you know will cause pain to the object of your love. If you know that what you're about to do will cause them pain, and you still do it, your love is not complete. You see what I mean? If you know in advance that what you're about to do will cause them pain, and you still do it, that means you're not 100% loving her. Same way the other way around. Love means that you are afraid. There's yir'ah to do something that will not hurt We love Hashem so much that because we have yir'ah, not to chas v'shalom do something against Hashem that will ruin our relationship, that will do something wrong against Him. You see how yir'ah and ahava really go together. They work together. So ahava does help us, does motivate us in kiyum mitzvot aseh, the positive commandments, whereas the yirah or the muras shamayim helps us to detain ourselves, to hold ourselves back from committing a lo ta'aseh in avirah. We need both. There are various levels in yirah and ahava. The Gaon of Vilna says like this: when it comes to yirah, there is plain yirah of onashim. The man is afraid to commit a sin because he's going to get punished. He's going to get punished. There is a second level called yireh het. He's not afraid of getting punished. He's afraid that his neshama will have to go through Gehenom. The neshama will be soiled. He's a higher level. He's not afraid of the punishment. And then there's yireh shamayim. He's afraid only because he doesn't want to go against Hashem. So here it says, "V'yireh moras shamayim alechem," not the het, not just plain yirah, moras shamayim. I don't want to do this because this is going against Hashem. The highest level of all. Yes.
In the majority of the text, whether it's the Torah or the Tehillim, it never mentions that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says you should love, you should fear. So he uses the word fear more than love.
No, it says "V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha" too. It says both.
But fear is used a lot more. I mean,
La'ahava u'lir'a oto. It says various times, both to love and to fear Him. Yeah. It could be maybe if we were to count statistics, numbers,
it's
how many
far
times
more.
Yirah says, yeah.
far more.
Yeah, but that doesn't really matter that much because it depends on the context. Enough that the Shema Yisrael says, "Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha." That's the mitzvah to love Hashem. With parents, we have both. We have kabed et avicha v'et imecha, to respect them and to fear them. And they both mean different things. Okay? What to respect is to do one thing, and to fear is not to do something else. It depends what it is. There are various details that apply to these two separate, distinct mitzvot. But nevertheless, they all involve the same thing. It's showing proper respect to a parent. One way doing it this way, one way doing it this way. With Hashem too. That's what I just said. The mitzvot aseh is a form of loving Him, of doing something for Him. Then holding ourselves back from not doing a lo ta'aseh is out of yir'ah for Him. But there are levels within ahava and there are levels within yir'ah. A person may love to do a mitzvah because he's going to be rewarded. That's not the highest level. As we said before, shelo al menat lekabel pras is a higher level. When you do something not because you want the reward, because you do it because you know it's so special, it's so important. Even if you're not rewarded, you still do it. That shows true ahava. If you know you're going to get a present for it, it's not the same. It still counts, but it's not the same. So therefore, these two, ahava and yirah, are what hold a Jew together. In other words, this is what helps him, this is what drives him, this is what motivates him. And sometimes people become weak in a particular area because chas v'shalom, some tragedy, some loss, some major problems in their life, they're being challenged. Their love for Hashem, the yirah for Hashem is being tested. One has to be careful that v'hi moras shamayim alechem at all times. Don't let your guard off from that. And how do you not let your guard down? Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid, David says. I always put Hashem before me. What does it mean I put Him before me? So there are various explanations. David HaMelech used to say v'chatati lenegdi tamid as well. He always thought about all the sins that he did. He therefore always repented and always asked Hashem forgiveness. Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid means also to put Hashem before you. Hashem comes first before anything else. You're going to go first, you're going to pray, you're not going to go eat breakfast first. I always put Him in front of me. That means I'm always aware, and I remind myself that He sees everything I do, He hears everything I do. Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. He's always there with me. Obviously, it has various connotations that Hashem is everywhere. But I'd like to add one more detail, and that is Shivit Hashem Tamid is ask yourself sometimes when you're in doubt about doing something, you're being pulled in different directions, what will Hashem say? If you allow that to cross your mind, you may not easily make a mistake. Obviously, human beings, we have our interests, we have our we're not always objective. We have our, what's that word for it? We have our
ISIS?
our biases, thank you. But Shivit Hashem Tamid, what would Hashem say? If I asked Hashem, what would He say? And sometimes you can get the answer by presenting it that way. You know, would He approve of this if I were to do this? Would this make Him happy? We don't always do that. We rush, right? As they say in Arabic, and similar in Farsi too, al-ajal min al-shaitan. You know, impulsiveness comes from the Satan. You know, people that's why make mistakes because they don't deliberate. They do things quickly. They get mad. Right? That's when a lot of harm and a lot of trouble comes out from impulsiveness. Think about it. We learned about it before. Having to be matun, to deliberate, and not to rush to conclusion, not to jump the gun, not to. Is that the right expression in English? To jump the gun?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I recall people saying. Anyway, one has to be careful. Shivit Hashem Negdid Tamid. He's watching. What would He say if people come to me? They want to get divorced. Unfortunately, too many. You know, do you think He approves of that? So some might actually say, yes, for sure He would agree with this. She's so bad, or he's so bad. No, He wouldn't. Not necessarily. It all depends on the case. The majority of the cases, of course, should not end up in a divorce. You know, think about everything. Think about the kids. What will it do to your home, to the kids, to your future? It's not always what He approves of, unless there's no choice. Obviously, there's no choice. You know, I remember my rabbi, Alav Shalom, was asked by a woman who was in her 50s. Her husband is going out with other women, and she wants to get a divorce. The rabbi asked her, tell me, is he a good dad to his kids? He says, yeah, he's a great dad. Does he provide for you, support you? He says, yes, he provides for me, supports me, takes care of everything. Just stick it out with him, he says. He's a rasha merusha. He's a wicked man for going with other women, but you're better off being with him than being alone. He says, no, who's gonna marry you in your 50s now? Who's gonna want you? You're gonna be left alone, you're gonna be miserable. Stick it out. He's a rasha, he's no good. He's evil. He's doing something terrible. But you're better off continuing to live with him than to be alone. Being alone is not a good idea. Now, had he been abusing her, hitting her, not providing parnasah, and all the terrible things, that's a completely different question. But he had a weakness. Yes, a big weakness. He called him a rasha. He's a rasha. But you stay with him. You're better off this way. Yes.
How many if a lady just went and complained about her husband?
Yeah.
Most of the family just does he give the family bread and water?
Same thing.
He just said, yes.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, Avram, you were going to say something else. If the woman complained that her husband goes somewhere else, they would give her lashes. The Iranians would. It's just for, because, I'm talking about a case where she, unfortunately, there was a woman in, I think it was in Pakistan, or one of those countries, where she was raped in Afghanistan. And they beat her up. They gave her trouble. Crazy mentality over there, but it's the same thing, that the whole area over there, they have these strange ideas. Yeah. So yes, Avram, I agree with you. That was the mentality back then, when sometimes a woman was not necessarily very, very happy, but they told her, listen, that may be the best situation for you anyway. Make the best of it, because being alone is worse. Even though there's a saying in Italian, how many of you know Italian? È meglio essere solo che mal accompagnato. It's in various languages. It's better to be alone than to be in bad company. It's true. It's better to be alone than to be in bad company. But, you know, that's relevant. I mean, that's relative, I should say. If the husband, as in your example, and in my example, is okay in other areas, just that he has this weakness, that really, that's something that one should really be careful with. Because to be alone, especially at a later age when nobody really wants you, and, you know, you're stuck. It's not a good feeling either. All right. So through the various things that we do, through the various things that a Jew does, whether it's the kissing of the mezuzah when he leaves the house or enters the house, whether it's the berachot that he makes, whether it's the tzitzit that he wears, the various mitzvot and prayers that he does, that helps the Yirat Shamayim. That strengthens the Yirat Shamayim. Since we do this on a regular basis, we can't afford to be without them, because that's the fuel. Without it, a Jew would lose his Yirat Shamayim. So these are reminders, because we forget. We're not always focused. But not everybody can do that. So we need reminders. And they are the ones that help strengthen your Yirat Shamayim. Read stories about tzaddikim. There are many, many things that one can do to strengthen his Yirat Shamayim. You read Tehillim, if you understand the words, it's incredible. It's powerful stuff. But you have to understand the words. Otherwise, you know, it's still good to read without understanding. But if you understand what's going on, you learn the Torah, you see the history of the Jewish people, take the time, you can only be amazed. The Midrashim, the Zohar, it definitely I have no doubt in my mind that it infuses one with Yirat Shamayim. Anyway, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, the greatest rabbi of his time, this is the second temple era towards the end. He's about to pass away, and his students are going to ask him for one final blessing and advice. And what does he say? You want to know? If I have one thing to say, what I'm going to tell you? I'm going to wish for you, may it be that your fear for heaven should be as strong as the fear you have for human beings. You fear the police, you fear wild animals. There are all kinds of sources that bring us fear in this world, in life. All kinds of little things. Even a mouse. I'm sure some of you will run. Right? Some things bring fear. So Rabbi Yochanan says, may it be that that's that kind of fear you should have from Hashem. People don't even have that little fear that they have for little things from Hashem. If the student says, that's it? He says, yeah, that's it. Aleva, you have that. If you have that, that's already a lot. Because not everybody even has that. The little bit, right? The Gemara says that Hashem made thunder and lightning to straighten out the heart, because the heart is twisted sometimes, crooked. So you hear the thunder, the lightning, and you become frightened. The fright that sometimes people go through is good, because it hopefully straightens them out. So that's what Rabbi Yochanan is telling them. Alevai, you should have that little bit of murah from Hashem in the same way that you have it for human beings. Because without that, a person may think he can get away with it. Nothing will happen to him. All right, let's just do one more Mishnah. Short Mishnah, Mishnah Daled. Yossi ben Yoezer ish tzradav, Yossi ben Yochanan ish Yerushalayim kiblu mehem. They are the next generation. Yossi ben Yoezer omer yeh betcha betvad lachachamim. Your home should always be a place where the chachamim gather. Ve'eveh mit'abek ba'afar ragleihem, and always associate with them close to the dust of their feet. Associate, mit'abek means to come close and embrace and associate with the dust of their feet, which means to be very, very close with them. And drink with thirst their words. So here they're taking it one step further. The Torah is not only a pillar, it's not only something that we're supposed to learn, it's not only something that we're supposed to do without anticipation of reward. Obviously, the Torah is important to us. If it's truly important, then take it to the next step. Prove it. Make your home a place where Chachamim meet, where Torah is taught. Buy books, Don't put posters of basketball players on the wall. Put tzaddikim. In other words, they should be physically present there too, not just the pictures on the wall. Why? Because let the kids see that you value Torah. Let your kids see that you consult with the Chachamim. Let your kids see that you want to learn and continue to learn and to ask. So invite them over. Have them over. And if it's not in your home, it's somebody else's home. And if it's not there, then in the Midrash. But they obviously wanted the home should be permeated. It should also enter, it should permeate the walls of one's home, because obviously the home is not just for a place where we sleep and eat. It should be a place of learning Torah too. So what better than bringing the Chachamim to the home, a place where gatherings are for a good cause, not just gathering to play bingo, right? Or gathering to play sheshbesh, or a gathering to watch a movie. It should be a bedvad for Chachamim, for lectures, for discussing a good cause, a charitable cause. And dust yourself or associate in the dust of their feet. What that means is that they used to once upon a time sit on the floor. That's how they used to learn, even though they used to have a rug for that. But it means that even though you have to come close and you may get dirty, and you have to wallow, as they say in English, in the dust of the Chachamim, do so. If you have to run after them, do so. All this will show that you respect Torah, that you care about this. And obviously, hopefully, this will stick with the kids too. And obviously, if you are serious about Torah, you want to drink it as though you're thirsty. There's a big difference when somebody drinks water when he's not thirsty or when he is thirsty. When he's not thirsty, the water doesn't have so much of a good taste. It's bland. When you're tasty, the water makes a big difference. These two, mit'abek b'farag lahem eshoteh betzamah divrehem, is a very, very important idea, because it shows that you're serious about this. You look for opportunities. You're not, well, I don't have it. Where I live, there's no Torah. Then guess what? You have to move to a place where there is Torah. Who told you to go live in let's see, let's find a good city. Eureka, California. Maybe there's a Chabad there by now, I don't know.
North Dakota.
Yeah, but which city in North Dakota? Yeah, it depends on the city. Who told you to go live there? Well, I got a great job opportunity. That comes second and third. First comes the Jewish community. Then comes the job, not the other way around. As we will eventually learn, don't wait for the Torah to come to you. Who says it's ever going to come? Oh, eventually there will be more Jews coming here. No. If you care about these things, then you should care. To remember what we said before, Torah is number one. Some people don't want Torah in their home because their furniture is very nice. They put Persian rugs from Tabriz, no? Which one are the nice ones? The Kashani or the Anyway, they're going to step. They're going to come with their muds, so they don't want to have anything in their home. You know, the furniture is more important to them than the sitting down and learning Torah. Obviously, you take precautionary measures so the house doesn't become dirty. But it shows that this is more important than that. You know, if you put that much attention and emphasis on the cleanliness and the carpets and the rugs, and therefore I don't want to have any guests over, that doesn't look right. Is also a very important idea, because it's the second condition for acquiring Torah. Acquiring Torah does not only come about by respecting it, by having it in your home, it comes about through humility. And when a person is mit'abek, he lowers himself to the dust. He means he lowers himself, he humbles himself, he's willing to accept what they tell him. That is another condition for acquiring of the Torah. We want a good connection to the Torah, you want a good connection with the Chachamim. One has to go out of his way to pursue them and to drink with thirst their words. Just one last point. He talks about the drinking of the Torah betzama. Learning Torah can be done even if we don't understand the words. That's a very Even though I just finished saying before how important it is to understand what we're saying in the prayer book, in the Tehillim. Obviously, if you understand, the words are so much more different. But we have a tradition that saying Tehillim and saying Zohar, and even any Torah that is being said, even without understanding, it does something tremendous to the neshama. So if you have the time, and even if you don't know, or if you don't have a translation, read Tehillim, right? Or for the men, you can learn from the Zohar. Learn the Chumash, read the Chumash. Shnai Mikra v'echad Targum. Twice the Chumash, the Parasha, and once the Targum every week. It does a tremendous tahara. It purifies the nefesh, the neshama. It's a marpeh. It cures it. Therefore, it's a tremendous benefit for one to immerse himself in the Torah, even if he doesn't fully understand it. What will happen, the rabbis tell us, is when a Jew, continuously learns Torah, continuously shows that he's thirsty, the appetite that he has will bring the other way around. The eating will bring the appetite. I think that's the saying, right? In other words, by immersing yourself, you will have more and more of an appetite, more and more of an interest, more and more of a thirst than you had in the very, very beginning. So this is a tremendous segula. A tremendous segula is to show that you care about this by as though you would be caring for the water when you're very thirsty. You want it, you need it. If one has that kind of a craving, that kind of an interest, that kind of a thirst for the words of Torah, there's no doubt that he will succeed in acquiring it. Hashem will, of course, help him find it. And, of course, B'ezrat Hashem, he will have the zechut, the merit that this craving and this interest and this desire, this connection will go over to his children. That is the greatest nachat of all, when one is able to see that his kids and grandkids want it as much as he did. Unfortunately, today, that's not always the case. You also have the opposite, that sometimes the kids and grandkids want it more than the parents, because it's, Baruch Hashem, this is the generation of Mashiach, right? So those things can happen too. Nonetheless, this is an extremely important point for the survival of one's Torah, of one's neshama, of one's morash shamayim, is that he should take these words seriously. And not just once in a while, shacharit, minyan, once in a while when I have the chance, shiur, just once in a while. Any time a person has that kind of attitude of once and when I have the time for it, this is not as important. You're not going to miss a plane if you're going to wake up very early to catch the plane, right? You value the plane, you value that flight. This is how the Chachamim are telling us to value Torah, to value the Chachamim, to value the survival of the Jewish people, is to be dedicated to it. Don't rely on others doing it for you. You're one of the chain. You're one of them. So much depends on every one of us. And of course, B'ezrat Hashem, by committing ourselves on a daily and regular basis, B'ezrat Hashem, we will be contributing to the survival of the Jewish people. Thank you.